What up, everybody? Beauty in Black Season 2 Part 1 is now available. A total of 8 episodes that picks up right after the conclusion of Season 1 when Kimmy had just got married to Horace, becoming Mrs. Bellery. And the main theme we saw throughout these 8 episodes is leverage. Season 2 Part 1 ends with Charles and attorney Varney being held at gunpoint by 3 men who had just came into Charles' house in masks, saying that they were cops. And this was as both attorney Varney and Charles were throwing up in the kitchen sinks because Varney had walked in on Charles in his bathroom with a chainsaw cutting up bodies. That's because prior to this, one of the strippers from the club had tried to set up Charles to get robbed. And when this took place, Charles ended up killing all 3 of them. An Easter egg going back to Season 1 when Olivia sent a crew to rob Horace and he ended up killing all of them. This is after a few episodes prior, Roy found out about Charles and Varney and told both Mallory and Olivia. So now all 3 of them have leverage over attorney Varney. And even though the 3 men who came into the house said that they were cops, they definitely were acting like cops, primarily because of the fact they had masks on. But that definitely doesn't mean that they weren't cops, keeping in mind that Jules has multiple dirty cops on his payroll, and this was also likely somebody affiliated with Jules. Also keeping in mind that the guy from the club who was in on the original robbery got away because he never went in. He was waiting in the delivery van as a lookout. So because these men had masks on, I think most likely they were there to finish what the other guys had started, and that's robbing Charles. Keeping in mind the dancer had sent the other guy pictures of Charles' safe and his watch collection amongst other things. But at the same time, the 3 men could have also been sent to Charles' house by Jules. Keeping in mind when Jules and Charles were both in the office waiting for the meeting with Kimmy, Charles approached Jules, asking him if he could trust him. And he was about to tell him what happened, but at the last second, he decided not to. Jules might have sent his men to Charles' house to see what was going on. Again, going back to leverage and possibly trying to get more leverage on Charles. But speaking of Jules, him and Kimmy had a face-to-face in the Part 1 finale, where Kimmy smacked Jules in the face multiple times for calling her Kimmy instead of Mrs. Bellery. And it seems like Jules started out compliant, but things escalated real quick when Kimmy brought up Jules' family, even calling Jules' wife right in front of Jules at this point in time and arranged for Kimmy to come over to Jules' house for dinner. Keep it in mind that Jules' wife and daughter don't know about his double life and are under the impression that he's an upstanding citizen. But at the same time, Jules' business with Norman is also now in jeopardy because of the fact they had to kill the judge who was helping them. And now will they still be able to have the same amount of leverage on the people they forced to work for them? And at this point, Jules revealed the truth, going back to Season 1, how Mallory didn't trust Jules and why nobody in the family should trust him. He said he had a record on everybody in the entire family and could take them all down, including Kimmy, because he knows that she killed both Body and Delinda. Either though we really don't know if Body is actually dead, because there's been mixed reports. Some saying that she's dead, others that she's in the hospital. Because either though there's been now 16 episodes since Kimmy ran into Body with that car, there's only been maybe 3 or 4 days that have passed at most. Because Season 2 Part 1 only spanned for about a day, 24 hours time. And that explains why Kimmy started out Season 2 Part 1 with so many doubts about everything, because the fact all this literally just happened overnight. In 1 day's time, she went from running from Jules, scared for her life, to marrying a multimillionaire. But as Kimmy began to get leverage on Jules through his family, he let Kimmy know that she could come for him all she wants, but to leave his family out of it, because they're the most important thing to him. And that gets us to another problem, and that's the fact that it was revealed that Jules has an older son that's in college, and he works at the Bellery Ranch. And the same kid ended up hooking up with Sylvie when Rain heard them and ran up to the stable, grabbing a pitchfork, I think that's what that's called, and started stabbing at this boy before he fell off the balcony and was assumed dead. But just like last season how there was 2 fake deaths, thinking that Charles and Roy had both been killed, even though most of us probably knew that Charles wasn't in his Lambo when Norman's people shot it up and lit it on fire. But we also got 2 fake deaths this season also, with first thinking that Angel had been killed, and now also with Jules' son. Either though Jules' son was in a lot worse position, similar to the comparison between Charles and Roy last season. How Roy wasn't even touched. That's kind of how it was with Angel at this point, either though he was shot at. While Roy was pushed off a balcony and had to go to the hospital, Jules' son was left in an even worse position than that. So if Jules finds out the truth about what happened to his son, it might be war, especially if he ends up dying. But Alex convinced Rain that he wouldn't remember anything if he did wake up, and Alex is going to say he fell off one of the horses, but that definitely seems like a reach with the way his head was busted. Then when Kimmy got home from the office, she went looking for Rain only to see Jules' son Glenn on the ground, and Kimmy wanted to know what happened. But honestly, I also got to admit that with Kimmy's new position, it does seem like Rain, Angel, and Sylvie are all liabilities. And personally, Angel started to get on my nerve this season because I just wasn't feeling the way he was disrespecting the staff. But as Angel's looking at Mr. Bellery's fleet of cars, we found out just how much power and control Jules actually has over everything when the head of security at Mr. Bellery's estate came in questioning Angel about his relationship with Mr. Bellery and letting Angel know that Jules hired him. So because of that, we got to believe that the head of security at Mr. Bellery's house is also reporting everything that goes on there back to Jules. But Jules wasn't the only person that Kimmy had a face-to-face with. She also called Roy into her office as she was stalling for the meeting, making everyone wait because Horace told her it would piss everyone off. The funny thing is, he told her that it would piss Roy off, but it actually pissed off Mallory and Olivia more than anyone. But at this point, Kimmy threatened to fire Roy for drinking on the job and also said that she was going to make him her bitch. But of course, Roy wasn't backing down to Kimmy. And while Kimmy was talking to Roy, first Mallory walked in and Kimmy started talking crazy to her, telling her to get out of her office. And I love the way that Kimmy talks to Mallory crazy, knowing that she's two-faced and trying to get her to break out of her act. In season 1, we thought that neither Horace or Olivia knew what Mallory was all about, but in season 2, we found out that they both already knew the game that Mallory's playing and that she's ruthless. Then after Mallory left Kimmy's office, Olivia walked in because, like I said, she was pissed off that Kimmy was making her wait so long for the meeting. But in this meeting, Kimmy started out with Horace in her ear as he was also watching from his hospital bed, now in Italy, where he went to try to get healed of his cancer. But at the beginning of the meeting, Kimmy disconnected her phone, and she later told Horace it was because they could tell she was on the phone with him, and she didn't want them to think that she needed his help. But during this meeting, Kimmy said that she wants to meet with Lena, the attorney from the lawsuit, and that she also wants to meet the victims. Then Kimmy did something that shook up everyone. She shifted the advertising budget from a radio station and a funeral home to online. And this was met by major backlash from Norman and Olivia. And that's because Norman and Olivia have both set up fake LLCs where they got a kickback from the advertising dollars Beauty and Black spent with the radio station and the funeral home. Horace later told Kimmy that he knew about that and planned on using it as leverage to take shares away from both of them, but it is what it is. In some ways, he underestimated Kimmy. And there you have it. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.